and never rise again. They die as if falling asleep, and the surrounding people, half dead themselves, pay them no attention. Many drivers on the road of life made 2 trips every day, one by day, one by night. Dozens of trucks were wrecked in traffic accidents, more than were destroyed by German aircraft. So the order was given for vehicles to start using their headlights. Trucks that crashed through the ice sank so fast that for several minutes the ghostly glow of their headlights could be seen at the bottom of the lake. Almost 300 trucks were lost in the first month of the road, but they had kept the city alive. Hundreds of thousands perished from starvation in that first winter. The scale of the suffering was almost beyond imagination. More than 1 million would die before this, the most devastating siege in history, was finally over. Leningrad, encircled by German and Finnish forces, witnessed hundreds of civilian deaths every day. But these were not collateral casualties. Hitler had decided that Leningrad should be wiped off the map. Secret orders entitled The Future of Leningrad stated, "After Soviet Russia has been defeated, the further existence of this population center is of no interest. In this war for existence, we have no interest in keeping even part of this great city's population." For the Soviet Union, it was vital that Leningrad be held at all costs. It was an important industrial city with many factories and the home base of the Baltic Fleet. Its loss would mean the loss of the northern port of Murmansk, where the Arctic convoys arrived carrying military aid from Britain and America. And for many, Leningrad remained the cultural and spiritual capital of the USSR. Its fate was watched by people from across the Soviet Union. They came to see their fate entwined with that of the city. The Soviet High Command decided to breach the encirclement at its thinnest point, the Schlieselburg-Sinyavina corridor. Here, only 10 kilometers separated troops of the Red Army's Leningrad front from the front line of the Volkhov front. But it was heavily defended, with 3 lines of fortifications. On the night of the 19th of September, a small force led by Captain Vasily Dubik crossed the Neva River in fishing boats. His men quietly landed on the far bank and took the German trenches by surprise. With this foothold across the river, a Soviet Marine brigade moved rapidly to reinforce Dubik's position. This strip of land, called by the soldiers the Nevsky Piatachok, the Neva Patch, would become legendary. 2 German parachute regiments, redeployed from Crete, were amongst the reinforcements sent to crush the Soviet bridgehead. They were plunged straight into the ferocious fighting. They failed to eliminate the bridgehead, but had squeezed it until it was just 2 kilometers long and 500 meters deep. In October, this tiny strip of land was the only hope for lifting the siege of Leningrad. All Red Army reserves were on their way to Moscow, where another desperate battle raged. The struggle at the bridgehead was brutal, attritional warfare. German shells swept back and forth across the whole area, forcing the Soviet soldiers to dig deep to find cover. Another attempt to break through was planned for November. By now, bread rations in the city were down to 125 grams. They weren't much more for frontline soldiers. One commander conducted an exercise to test the strength of his men. Most were exhausted after walking just 400 meters. In a speech at Munich on the 8th of November, Hitler declared, "Leningrad has nothing to count upon. It will fall sooner or later. There are no forces to raise the siege. Leningrad is doomed to die from starvation." At the beginning of November, the Red Army got tanks across the Neva and captured more German trenches. In turn, the Germans fed in their own reinforcements. In November, the Red Army lost 5,000 men, killed in the Neva patch. The Germans, too, suffered heavy losses. The tiny bridgehead had become a slaughterhouse. In Leningrad itself, 4,000 were dying every day from starvation. On some days, this figure rose to 7,000. January 1942 became the worst month of the entire siege. Non-workers had their food ration stopped entirely. The electricity supply failed. Water pipes froze solid in temperatures of minus 30 degrees centigrade. Furniture, wooden fences, anything that would burn was used for firewood. One Leningrader, Yelena Scriabina, wrote in her diary, "Death has become a phenomenon observed at every turn. When you step outside in the morning, you stumble over corpses lying in the gateway and in the street. The dead bodies lie there for a long time because there's nobody to dispose of them." Even in the worst months of the siege, the people of Leningrad still went to work. The Kirov factory, just 4 kilometers from the front line, didn't stop producing tanks for a single day. Half-assembled tanks were even used to fire on the enemy from the factory floor. The Leningrad Institute of Plant Industry was dedicated to the research of commercial crops. It contained the world's largest seed bank. 28 institute workers died from starvation during the siege. But the plant breeding collection containing several tons of crops, rice and potatoes remained intact. In February 19